What if I told you that a 17-year-old girl with nothing but a bobby pin could accomplish what millions of dollars, the best therapists, and 3 years of desperate attempts had failed to do? What if I told you that in just 3 minutes, she would change the life of a billionaire CEO forever, not by asking for money, not by seeking fame, but by doing something so simple, so pure, that it would make a grown man weep in a school hallway? And what if I told you that this moment, this single act of kindness from a janitor's daughter to a silent, broken child, would spark a scandal so explosive that it would threaten to destroy everything, force impossible choices, and ultimately prove that the most radical thing you can do in this world is love someone openly? This is not just a story about fixing a broken toy. This is a story about fixing broken hearts, broken families, and broken dreams. This is a story about what happens when love refuses to follow the rules society has written for it. You're about to witness something extraordinary, the moment when a man who had everything learned what it truly means to have enough, the fall. Moment when a child who had lost his voice found it again through the hands of a stranger. The moment when a teenage girl proved that wisdom has nothing to do with age and everything to do with the courage to care. But I have to warn you, this story will challenge everything you think you know about family, about power, about what makes a person valuable. It will make you question whether the most important relationships in your life are the ones society approves of, or the ones that actually heal your heart. If you're ready to have your assumptions shattered, if you're ready to believe that broken things can be more beautiful when they're fixed with love, if you're ready to see proof that miracles happen in the most ordinary places, then stay with me. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a revelation about the kind of love that changes everything it touches. And if this story moves you the way it moved me, if it reminds you of someone in your own life who showed up when you needed them most, or if it gives you hope that healing is possible even when everything seems lost, share it. Because stories like this, one need to spread. They need to reach the people who've forgotten that love can be stronger than fear, that families can be built from choice, that sometimes the most important teachers come in the most unexpected packages. Hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss a single moment of what comes next. Trust me, this is the kind of story that changes how you see the world. Now, let me take you back to a penthouse in Manhattan, where a father who had everything was about to learn what it meant to have nothing at all. A penthouse that costs more than most people earn in a lifetime, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline, Italian leather furniture that no one sits on, fresh orchids that no one notices, and in the center of this perfect, pristine world, absolute emptiness. David Marshall, 42 years old, stands at his kitchen island, a monument of black granite that could seat 12 but feeds only silence. His hands, steady enough to sign million-dollar deals, now tremble as he pours. Batter into a pan, the sizzle of pancakes fills the air, but it's the only warmth in this cold palace. "Leo," his voice calls out, practiced and hollow. "Daddy's making pancakes, buddy. Your favorite blueberry?" No answer. Just the tick-tock of a Swiss chronometer that costs more than a teacher's annual salary. Tick-tock, tick-tock, each second marking another moment of failure. But here's what breaks your heart. This isn't the story of a father who doesn't care. This is the story of a father who cares so much, he's forgotten how to show it. Watch his hands as he flips that pancake. They're shaking. Not from weakness, but from the weight of 3 years of trying to reach a son who's built walls higher than any skyscraper David ever owned. A single tear falls into the batter. The richest man in the building, crying into breakfast that no one will eat. But to understand how a single moment would change everything, we need to see how deep this silence had grown. Let me tell you about David Marshall's typical Tuesday morning. 6 a.m. His alarm sounds in a bedroom that still smells like her perfume. Chanel Note 5, the bottle gathering dust on a vanity no one touches. He reaches for the empty space. Beside him, just like he has every morning for 3 years, 4 months and 16 days, his wife Sarah's side of the bed is made perfectly, pillows fluffed, because perfection is easier than acceptance. 7 a.m. He stands outside Leo's Bedroom door, hand raised to knock, frozen between wanting to enter and fearing rejection. Through the door he can hear the soft sounds of a 9-year-old getting dressed, the rustle of clothes, the zip of a backpack. Normal sounds from a life that stopped being normal the day Mommy's heart stopped beating. Leo. Want me to drive you to school today? Silence. Not defiant silence, that would be easier to understand. This is the silence of a child who's learned that words hurt more than quiet. David's forehead touches the door, cool wood against burning shame. Okay, buddy. Carlos will drive you. Have a good day. 8 a.m. The boardroom of Marshall. Educational technologies. 12 executives hang on his every word as he discusses quarterly projections, market expansion, acquisition targets. He speaks fluently about growth rates and profit margins, his mind sharp as ever. But watch his eyes, they drift to his phone, hoping for a text from school. Mr. Marshall, Leo drew a picture today. Or Leo smiled in math class. Anything. Any sign that his son is more than just a shadow moving through their shared space, but the phone stays silent. The irony cuts deep. David built his company on educational technology, software that helps children learn, connect, grow. His programs are used in schools across America, bringing joy and discovery to thousands of kids, yet he can't reach the one child who matters most. In the conference room, while his team discusses user engagement metrics for their latest reading app, David stares out the window and wonders if Leo even remembers what his laugh sounds like. When was the last time they shared a joke? When was the last time Leo asked him for help with homework, or wanted to play a game, or simply wanted to be in the same room without it feeling like a standoff between strangers? The presentation continues around him. Charts and graphs showing how their educational software increases student participation by 47%. How their interactive learning modules reduce classroom behavioral issues, how their parent-teacher communication platform strengthens family connections. All of it might as well be written in a foreign language because David can't figure out how to connect with the most important student in his life. Noon. David eats lunch alone in his office, pushing around a salad that tastes like cardboard. On his desk sits a framed photo of the three of them, David, Sarah, and 4-year-old Leo at the beach. Leo is on David's shoulders, arms spread wide like he's flying. Sarah is laughing at something David said, her hair catching the sunlight. They look like a family that believes in forever. The photo has been there for 3 years, but David rarely looks at it anymore. It hurts too much to remember what happiness felt like. It hurts to see the man he used to be, the father who knew how to make his son giggle, who could turn grocery shopping into an adventure, who had answers for questions like, why is the sky blue, and where do babies come from? That man feels like a stranger now. 5 p.m., David's assistant asks if he wants to reschedule his 6 o'clock meeting so he can get home for dinner. He looks at his calendar, sees the empty evening stretching ahead and shakes his head. No, I'll take the meeting. Leo probably has homework anyway. It's a lie, and they both know it. Leo finished his homework hours ago, sitting alone, at the kitchen counter while their housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, heated up dinner and tried to make conversation in broken English. Leo doesn't have soccer practice or piano lessons or playdates. He has the same thing David has, empty time filled with the echoes of what used to be. 9 p.m. David finally arrives home to a penthouse where every light is on, but no one is. Really living. Mrs. Rodriguez has left Leo's dinner in the refrigerator with reheating instructions. Leo's backpack sits by the door, homework completed, and returned to folders with the mechanical precision of a child who's learned that structure is safer than spontaneity. David stands in Leo's doorway watching his son sleep. Leo clutches a framed photo of his mother. The same photo David can't bear to look at, because Sarah's smile reminds him of everything he failed to protect. In sleep, Leo's face relaxes, and for just a moment, David sees the boy who used to run into his arms, who used to laugh at terrible dad jokes, who used to believe Daddy could fix anything. "I'm sorry," David whispers to the darkness. "I'm so sorry I don't know how to help you. I'm sorry I can't bring her back. I'm sorry I'm not enough." Leo doesn't hear him, but somewhere in his dreams, maybe he feels the weight of love. That doesn't know how to bridge the gap between two broken hearts. This is David's life, moving through the motions of success while drowning in the silence of his own home. He's learned to speak the language of business, but forgotten how to speak the language of love. And every day the distance between father and son grows wider, like a crack in glass that spreads until the whole thing shatters. David Marshall. Kerr's about to discover that sometimes the person who can teach us how to love again comes from the most unexpected place. 3 floors below his tower of isolation, another story was unfolding, one that would soon collide with his in ways neither could imagine. But 3 floors below the Marshall penthouse in the basement, where the cleaning crews work through the night, there's another story unfolding. A story about a woman named Carmen Martinez who arrived from El Salvador 20 years ago with nothing but dreams sewn into the lining of a worn suitcase. Carmen, who works 3 jobs to keep her 17-year-old daughter in school. Carmen, who cleans the offices of people who will never know her name, who will never see her as more than invisible hands that make their world pristine, and her daughter, Ariel. Oh, Ariel. If you could see her, hunched over a desk made from a cardboard box in the supply closet, while her mother vacuums floors 23 stories above. Textbooks borrowed from the library spread around her like treasures, a calculator held together with duct tape and stubborn determination, notebook paper that's been erased and reused so many times it's soft as fabric, and in the corner something magical, a small robot built from discarded computer parts, soda cans, and pure imagination. "Mira, Mama," Ariel calls softly, not wanting to disturb the evening quiet. "Look, I made him dance." The little robot jerks and sways to the rhythm of a song playing from Ariel's phone, a bachata that reminds Carmen of home, of her mother's kitchen, of Sunday afternoons when the whole family would gather to cook and laugh and forget about the hardships of the week. The robot's eyes, made from LED lights salvaged from old computer equipment, blink in time with the beat. Carmen stops mopping and watches her daughter's creation come to life. This girl, this brilliant girl who sees potential in everything the world has discarded, who builds dreams from garbage and finds music in silence. "Como lo haces, mi amor?" "How do you do it, my love?" Ariel grins, her teeth bright against dark skin that glows under the fluorescent lights. "I just listen to what's broken, Mama. Everything broken wants to work again. It just needs someone to understand what it's trying to say." Carmen's eyes fill with tears she won't let fall. This girl, this extraordinary girl who deserves so much more than cleaning supply closets and second-hand textbooks. How did someone like Carmen, who barely finished 8th grade before leaving school to work in the coffee fields, raise someone so brilliant? "Mama, you know what I believe," Ariel continues, her hands gentle as she adjusts a wire in the robot's head. "I believe everything that's broken can be fixed, even hearts, even the things that seem impossible. You just have to be patient and listen carefully." Carmen kneels beside her daughter, work-worn hands touching the girl's face with infinite tenderness. "Y si no se puede arreglar, mija? And what if it can't be fixed, my daughter?" Ariel's smile doesn't waver. "Then you love it broken until it remembers how to be whole." The words hang in the air between them, profound in their simplicity. Above them, 23 floors up, David Marshall stares out at the city lights, unaware that in the basement of his own building, a teenage girl is speaking truths he desperately needs to hear, unaware that sometimes salvation comes not from above, but from below, not from power, but from powerlessness, not from those who have everything, but from those who understand what it means to have nothing and still choose hope. Carmen returns to her mopping, but her heart is full. She thinks about the scholarship applications hidden in Ariel's backpack, the acceptance letters they're both afraid to hope for, MIT, Stanford. Schools that seem as distant as the stars, but maybe, just maybe, not impossible for a girl who can make broken things dance. "Mama," Ariel says quietly, "do you think I'm crazy for wanting to study engineering?" Carmen stops mopping again. "¿Por qué preguntas eso?" Why do you ask that? Because everyone says girls like me don't become engineers. Because we can't afford the schools that teach engineering. Because Ariel's voice grows smaller. Because maybe I'm just good at fixing little things, and that's not the same as real engineering. Carmen sits down beside her daughter on the cold concrete floor, pulls Ariel's head onto her shoulder. Mi amor, let me tell you something. I clean offices for people who went to fancy schools, who have degrees hanging on their walls like trophies. But you know what I see in their trash cans? Broken printers they don't know how to fix. Computers they replace instead of repairing. Problems they pay other people to solve because they never learn to listen to what's really wrong. She lifts Ariel's chin, looks into eyes that hold the wisdom of someone who's learned to see possibility where others see garbage. House, you don't just fix things, Mija. You understand them. You hear what they need, and that's not just engineering. That's the heart that makes engineering matter. The robot continues its awkward dance, a beautiful symphony of second chances and stubborn love. Its movements are imperfect, but they're full of life, full of the determination to keep going, despite being made from discarded pieces. Besides, Carmen adds with a smile, if God didn't want you to be an engineer, why would he give you such magic hands? Ariel laughs, the sound echoing in the supply closet like music. Above them, the building sleeps, full of people who have no idea that in the basement, a mother and daughter are nurturing dreams that could change the world. And somewhere, in its jerky movements, in its refusal to give up despite being made from broken things, Ariel's little robot carries a message about healing that neither David nor Ariel knows they're about to teach each other, and that collision was about to happen in the most ordinary place imaginable, a fourth-grade classroom on a rainy Thursday morning. Sometimes the most important moments of our lives happen in the most ordinary places. Washington Elementary's STEM workshop on a rainy Thursday morning, the kind of grey day that makes fluorescent lights buzz a little louder and makes 9-year-olds fidget in their plastic chairs. Mrs. Henderson, a teacher with 30 years of patience, worn thin by budget cuts and standardized tests, tries to maintain order as 23 fourth graders attempt to build working engines from craft supplies. Remember, children, the engine needs 3 components to function: fuel, spark, and compression. Just like your model cars need all their parts working together. Crash. In the back corner, Leo Marshall's carefully constructed engine explodes in a shower of popsicle sticks and rubber bands. The noise cuts through the classroom chatter. Like a knife, 22 heads turn toward the commotion. 22 pairs of eyes focus on the boy who never speaks, never smiles, never causes trouble. Oh, comes the collective sound of children witnessing disaster. Some giggle, some point. All of them watch as Leo's face crumples, his hands trembling as he stares at the scattered pieces of his project. For a moment, the classroom goes silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of rain against windows. Leo stares at the wreckage of his engine, and something breaks inside him that has nothing to do with popsicle sticks and rubber bands. "It's okay, Leo," Mrs. Henderson says quickly, moving toward him with the practiced efficiency of someone who's cleaned up thousands of childhood disasters. "We have extra supplies, you can start over." But Leo doesn't want to start over. Leo is 9 years old, and he's tired of things breaking. Tired of starting over. Tired of the empty spaces where laughter used to live. A single tear rolls down his cheek and he wipes it away quickly, angrily, like tears are another thing he's failed at. "I can't," he whispers, so quietly, only the universe hears him. "I can't fix it." The other children begin to lose interest, returning to their own projects with the short attention spans of 9-year-olds. But Leo sits frozen, staring at the pieces of his broken engine like they represent everything wrong with his world. That's when she appears. Ariel Martinez, 17 years old, isn't supposed to be in this elementary school classroom. She's supposed to be in her AP physics class across town. But today is different. Today her mother Carmen couldn't afford the bus fare for Ariel's longer commute, so Ariel walked 12 blocks in the rain to bring her mother's forgotten lunch to the office building. Today she happened to be cutting through the elementary school courtyard when she heard the crash through an open window. Today fate decided to intervene. She stands in the doorway for just a moment, water dripping from her rain-soaked jacket, taking in the scene, the frustrated teacher, the giggling children, and in the center of it all, a small boy surrounded by the wreckage of his dreams. Something in Ariel's chest tightens. She knows that look. She's worn it herself. "Excuse me," she says, stepping into the classroom. Mrs. Henderson turns, surprised to see a teenager. In her elementary classroom, "I'm sorry, but this is a closed classroom. If you're looking for the office—" "I know about engines," Ariel says simply. She's not looking at the teacher. She's looking at Leo, seeing past the expensive clothes and the privilege to the universal pain of a child whose world has fallen apart. "I think I can help." 23 pairs of eyes watch as this teenage girl, with her worn jeans and hand-me-down sweater, walks to the back of the classroom like she belongs there. She kneels beside Leo's desk, her movements careful and deliberate. No rushed energy, no adult urgency, just quiet presence. "What's your name?" she asks Leo softly. "Leo," he whispers, still staring at the broken pieces. "Leo. That's a good name, strong name, like a lion." She surveys the scattered popsicle sticks with the same careful attention David gives to quarterly reports. "You know what, Leo, I bet this engine doesn't want to stay broken. I bet it's just confused about how its pieces fit together." She reaches into her hair and pulls out a bobby pin. From her pocket, she takes a pencil eraser. With these simple tools and the scattered popsicle sticks, she begins to work. Her hands move with the confidence of someone who understands that broken things have their own language, their own desire to be whole again. The classroom grows quiet. Even Mrs. Henderson stops moving, watching as Ariel repositions components, adjusts angles, creates new connections. She doesn't lecture about physics or engineering principles. She just listens to what the broken engine wants to tell her. "You know what I think," she says as she works, her voice pitched just for Leo. "I think this engine was trying to be too perfect. Sometimes things work better when they're a little bit different from the plan. 3 minutes. That's all it takes. 3 minutes of bobby pins and pencil erasers and gentle fingers that know how to coax life from lifeless things. 3 minutes and then, click, whir. The little engine comes to life, the rubber band spins, the wheels turn, the engine putters forward across the desk like a stubborn, determined little miracle. Leo's eyes go wide. His mouth opens slightly. And then something breaks open in his chest, something that's been locked away for 3 years, 4 months and 17 days. He smiles. Not just any smile. The smile. The one that transforms his whole face. That lights up his eyes, that reminds the universe that children are made of magic and hope, and the unshakable belief that tomorrow can be better than today. "That's exactly how Mom used to fix things," he breathes, wonder filling his voice. "She always said broken things just needed someone to listen to them." 23 children burst into applause. Mrs. Henderson wipes away a tear. And somewhere in the hallway, David Marshall, who had come to observe his son's class, who had been standing outside the door for 10 minutes trying to work up the courage to enter, leans against the wall and weeps, because for the first time, in 3 years, 4 months and 17 days, his son is smiling. And it wasn't David who made it happen. David Marshall has built an empire on split-second decisions. He can read market trends like poetry, predict consumer behavior like prophecy, negotiate deals that would make Machiavelli proud. But standing in that elementary school hallway, watching his son smile at a stranger's kindness, he's completely lost. The applause fades. Children return to their projects with the short attention spans that make childhood both beautiful and chaotic. Mrs. Henderson begins cleaning up, the scattered supplies, still stealing glances at the miracle that just unfolded in her classroom. And Ariel starts to leave quietly without fanfare, the way angels depart when their work is done. Wait. The word escapes David's throat before his brain can stop it. It comes out rougher than he intended, carrying the weight of 3 years of silence and sudden, desperate hope. Ariel turns at the classroom door, meeting his eyes for the first time. She's smaller than he expected, younger, with dark hair escaping from a ponytail and eyes that hold depths he doesn't understand. But there's something in her gaze, a steadiness, a kindness, a recognition of pain that makes his chest tight. "I'm Leo's father," he says, extending his hand in the automatic gesture of business introductions. The movement feels strange, formal, inadequate for this moment. "David Marshall." Ariel looks at his outstretched hand for a moment before taking it. Her grip is firm, calloused from work he can't imagine. "Ariel Martinez, what you did in there. How did you—" David struggles for words. This man who commands boardrooms and influences markets, reduced to stammering by a 17-year-old's quiet competence. She shrugs, a movement that somehow contains entire conversations about growing up poor, about making do, about finding solutions in impossible places. "I just listened. Things want to work, you know, they just sometimes forget how—" David stares at her, this teenager who speaks about mechanical empathy like it's the most natural thing in the world, like broken things are just temporarily confused rather than permanently damaged. "Where did you learn to do that, my mama?" Ariel's smile is soft, tinged with memory and love that glows like sunlight through her words. "She cleans your building at night. She taught me that everything deserves a chance to work properly, even when it seems impossible." The words hit David like a physical blow. Your building, this girl, this miracle worker who just gave his son back his smile, is the daughter of someone who cleans his offices, someone whose name he's never learned, whose face he wouldn't recognize, whose existence he's never acknowledged, someone who probably knows more about his daily routines than he knows about hers. He starts, then stops. "What do you say? How do you apologize for a lifetime of not seeing? How do you bridge a gap that wide with words? How do you tell someone that you've been blind to the very people who make your life possible?" Ariel watches his struggle with the patience of someone accustomed to watching powerful people realize their powerlessness. There's no judgment. In her eyes, no resentment at his ignorance, just understanding, the kind that comes from seeing the world from the bottom up. "Mr. Marshall, can I tell you something?" He nods, not trusting his voice, afraid that anything he says will reveal how small he feels in this moment. "Your son isn't broken. He's just been trying to fix himself all alone, and that's really hard to do. Sometimes we need someone else's hands to help us remember how our pieces fit together." The hallway suddenly feels too small, too bright, too full of truths David isn't ready to hear. But Leo's smile, Leo's smile is worth any discomfort, worth confronting any uncomfortable truth about himself. "Would you—" David's voice cracks like a teenager's. He clears his throat, tries again. "Would you consider tutoring Leo? I could pay you well, more than well. I could—" "Mr. Marshall." Ariel's voice is gentle but firm, cutting through his reflexive reach for the solution money can buy. "I don't think this is about money." She's right, of course. She's 17 years old, and she sees what he's spent 42 years learning. To ignore that some problems can't be solved with wealth, some distances can't be bridged with dollars, some wounds need more than expensive bandages. "Then what is it about?" he asks, and for the first time in years he's genuinely asking for help instead of trying to buy it. Ariel glances back toward the classroom where Leo is showing his working engine to a group of newly interested classmates. Through the window they can see him demonstrating how the gears work, his face animated with enthusiasm that's been absent for so long. His voice carries through the glass, higher pitched with excitement, alive in a way that makes David's throat close with emotion. It's about showing up, being present, listening to what's really broken and what just needs attention. "I don't know how to do that," David admits, the words feeling like confession in a church he's never entered, like admitting to a sin he didn't know he was committing. "I know," Ariel says simply, "but Leo knows you're trying. That matters more than you think." They stand in comfortable silence for a moment, watching through the classroom window, as Leo carefully demonstrates his engine to another boy who's been struggling with his project. Leo's voice is patient, encouraging, full of the same gentle guidance Ariel showed him. It's like watching kindness reproduce itself, spread from one person to another like ripples in still water. "If you really want to help him," Ariel says finally, "start by asking him about his day. Not about his grades or his behavior. Ask him what made him happy. Ask him what made him sad. Ask him what he's wondering about. David nods, memorizing her words like a businessman taking notes in the most important meeting of his life. These simple instructions feel revolutionary, like someone has just handed him a map to a country he's been trying to reach for years. And, Mr. Marshall, Ariel adds as she heads toward the exit, her footsteps quiet on the polished linoleum. Maybe ask yourself the same questions. She leaves him standing in the hallway, surrounded by children's artwork and the echo of wisdom he never learned in business school. Through the window, Leo waves at him, actually waves with genuine enthusiasm. And David waves back, his heart breaking and healing simultaneously. For the first time in 3 years, 4 months, and 17 days, David Marshall has hope. Not the kind he manufactures for board meetings or investor calls, but real hope. The kind that hurts because it's built on the possibility of change, and change requires admitting that everything you've been doing might be wrong. Sometimes the teacher appears when the student is ready. Sometimes salvation comes in the form of a 17-year-old girl with bobby pins and an unshakable belief that broken things can be whole again. But what happens when the student realizes he's not just learning to fix engines, he's learning to fix himself? 3 days later, David does something he hasn't done in 3 years. He comes home early, not for a conference call or a crisis meeting or any of the dozen emergencies that usually pull him away from normal life. He comes home because Leo asked if they could work on his engine together. Because for the first time since Sarah died, his son made a request that had nothing to do with basic survival and everything to do with connection. The Marshall penthouse has never heard the sounds it hears today. The scatter of small parts across the dining room table that usually hosts only silent dinners, the rustle of instruction papers, the quiet conversation between a father and son who are remembering how to be in the same room without silence filling every corner like a third presence. Daddy, Ariel said that engines have personalities, Leo says, carefully positioning a gear with the concentration of a surgeon. His tongue sticks out slightly as he focuses, a gesture that reminds David achingly of Sarah. She said this one is probably shy because it's been broken, so we have to be extra gentle. David watches his son's face, illuminated by the late afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. When did Leo's cheeks lose their roundness? When did his hands become so careful, so precise? How many changes has David missed while buried in quarterly reports and acquisition strategies? How many small moments of growth passed by while he was analyzing market penetration data? Tell me more about Ariel, David says, trying to keep his voice casual, even as his heart pounds with the fear of saying the wrong thing, of breaking this fragile moment, like everything else he's touched since Sarah died. Leo's face lights up, that smile again, the one that's been appearing, more frequently since Thursday, the one that transforms him from the quiet, careful child he's become back into the joyful boy David remembers. She's really smart, Daddy. Like, really, really smart. She knows about physics and chemistry and how to make robots from garbage. She showed me pictures of a robot she built that can dance to music. That does sound pretty amazing, David agrees, fitting a rubber band around a small pulley with hands that are steadier than they've been in years. There's something meditative about this work, something that quiets the constant noise in his head. And she's nice, not nice like adults who talk to kids like we're babies, nice like... Leo pauses, searching for words to explain something he feels but doesn't fully understand. Like she remembers what it feels like to be sad and doesn't want other people to feel that way. The words hit David with unexpected force. This is the longest conversation he and Leo have had since Sarah's funeral. And it's about a girl he barely knows, a girl whose mother cleans his building, a girl who saw his son's pain and chose to heal it without asking for anything in return. They work in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the soft click of small parts fitting together and the distant hum of Manhattan traffic far below. David finds himself relaxing in a way he hasn't in years, his shoulders dropping, his breathing deepening. When was the last time he felt this peaceful? When was the last time he was fully present in a moment instead of thinking about the Next meeting, the next crisis, the next problem to solve. Leo, David says carefully, testing the waters of deeper conversation. What do you remember about Mommy fixing things? Leo's hands still on the engine parts. For a moment, David thinks he's pushed too hard, asked too much. The silence stretches between them, heavy with the weight of 3 years of avoided conversations. But then, Leo's voice comes, soft and wondering, as if he's discovering these memories rather than recalling them. She used to hum when she fixed stuff, and she never got mad when things didn't work the first time. She said. Leo pauses, concentration wrinkling his forehead as he reaches for words that have been locked away. She said that everything broken was just asking for help, and the trick was learning how to hear what it needed. David's throat closes. Sarah. God, Sarah. She would know what to do right now. She would know how to bridge this gap, how to reach their son, how to make their family whole again. She had this gift for seeing what people needed before they knew they needed it. Ariel hums too, Leo continues, oblivious to his father's emotional storm. But different songs, Spanish songs that sound like lullabies even when you don't know the words. And she tells me stories about her mama while we work. What kind of stories? About how her mama came to America with just one suitcase. About how they used to live in one room and share everything. About how her mama works really hard so Ariel can go to school. Leo looks up at David with eyes that hold a new kind of understanding. Daddy, did you know some kids don't have their own rooms or their own toys? The question hits David like a punch to the chest. His son, his privileged son who's never wanted for anything material, is discovering that the world is bigger and harsher than their penthouse existence. No, buddy, I guess I never thought to tell you about that. Ariel says being poor isn't the same as being sad, though. She says her mama is the happiest person she knows, even though they don't have much money. David absorbs this, thinking about his own life of abundance that feels so empty. What do you think about that? Leo considers the question with the seriousness of a child who's been forced to grow up too fast. I think maybe having stuff isn't the same as being happy. Because we have lots of stuff, but we've been really sad. The simplicity of the observation takes David's breath away. Out of the mouths of babes, his 9-year-old son has just articulated what David has spent 3 years trying to understand. Do you miss Mommy? David asks, the question slipping out before he can stop it. It's the question he's been afraid to ask, afraid of the answer, afraid of opening wounds that might never heal. Leo looks up, meeting his father's eyes directly for the first time in months. Every day, he says simply. Do you? Every second, David whispers. They sit with that truth between them, heavy and light simultaneously. Outside, Manhattan bustles with its typical urgency, sirens, car horns, the distant sound of construction. But inside this penthouse, time moves, differently and slower, more carefully. Daddy. Leo's voice is very small. Sometimes I pretend Mommy can see me when I build things. Do you think that's silly? David's vision blurs. He reaches across the table and covers Leo's small hand with his own. The contact feels electric after so many months of careful distance. I think Mommy would love seeing you build engines. I think she'd be proud of how smart you are, how kind you are, how you're learning to help other kids with their projects. Ariel says dead people leave love behind, like invisible hugs that we can still feel if we pay attention. The wisdom of a 17-year-old filtered through the understanding of a 9-year-old. Cutting straight to the heart of grief David has been too afraid to face. He thinks about Sarah's last days, how she made him promise to take care of Leo to help him grow up happy, how he's failed that promise every day since, maybe, David says, his voice rough with unshed tears, maybe we should invite Ariel to dinner sometime, to thank her for helping with your engine. Leo's smile could power the entire city. Really, you'd want to meet her. I think, David says, looking at his son, really looking at him, seeing him, being present with him, I think I'd like to meet the person who taught my son to smile again. That night, after Leo has gone to bed clutching his completed engine, like a treasure, David sits in his home office staring at his phone. Carmen Martinez's number is in the building directory, emergency contact for night security. His finger hovers over the call button for 10 minutes before he finally dials. The phone rings 3 times before a woman's voice answers in accented English. Bueno. Mrs. Martinez. This is David Marshall. From the building. From the penthouse. There's a sharp intake of breath, then rapid Spanish he can't understand. When Carmen speaks again, her voice is careful, worried. See, Mr. Marshall, is something wrong or did I break something? I can pay for... No, nothing's wrong, David says quickly. I wanted to talk to your daughter, to Ariel. Is she available? More muffled Spanish, then footsteps. David waits, his heart pounding like he's about to make the most important business presentation of his life. Mr. Marshall, Ariel's voice comes on the line, cautious but not unfriendly. Is everything okay? Is Leo all right? Leo's fine, David assures her quickly. Better than fine. He's been talking about you, about what you taught him. And I was wondering, would you like to have dinner with us this weekend? And Leo would love to show you his finished engine. Silence on the other end. David can hear the soft murmur of Spanish conversation in the background, can imagine Carmen and Ariel having a rapid consultation about this unexpected invitation. Mr. Marshall, I don't think... Please, David interrupts, the word carrying more weight than any business negotiation he's ever conducted. Not as my employee's daughter, not as Leo's tutor, just as Leo's friend. He needs this. We need this. Another pause and then softly. What time? As David hangs up the phone, he realizes something has shifted in the penthouse. The silence isn't empty anymore. It's full of possibility. Full of Leo's humming. As he tinkers with his engine in the next room. Full of hope that maybe, just maybe, they're all learning how to be whole again. Saturday evening arrives with the kind of golden light that makes Manhattan look forgiving. David has spent the entire day preparing for this dinner with the nervous energy of a man whose life depends on the next few hours going well. He's changed clothes 3 times, ordered food from Leo's favorite restaurant, and rearranged the dining room furniture twice before deciding the original setup was fine. Leo, meanwhile, has been a bundle of barely contained excitement since breakfast. He's cleaned his room without being asked, practiced explaining his engine at least 12 times, and checked the front door every 10 minutes since 3 o'clock. Daddy, what if she doesn't like the food? Leo asks for the 4th time, bouncing on his toes by the window. What if she's vegetarian? What if she doesn't want to eat expensive food because her family doesn't have much money? What if... Leo, David says gently, kneeling down to his son's level. Ariel is coming because she cares about you, not because of the food or the apartment or anything else. She's coming because you matter to her. The words surprise David as he says them. When did he become the parent offering reassurance instead of the one needing it? When did he start understanding what his son needed to hear? The doorbell rings at exactly 6 o'clock. Leo races to answer it, David close behind, both of them suddenly nervous in the way that people are when something important is about to happen. Ariel stands in the doorway, wearing a simple dress that's obviously her best clothes, her dark hair pulled back neatly. She carries a small wrapped package and looks around the penthouse with wide eyes that try not to betray her amazement at the luxury surrounding her. Ariel. Leo throws his arms around her waist, and she hugs him back with the easy affection of an older sister. You came, you really came. Of course I came, mijo. I've been excited to see your finished engine all week. David watches this interaction with something that feels dangerously close to jealousy. Not jealousy of Ariel, but jealousy of how easy it is for her to connect with Leo. How natural it seems for her to be exactly what Leo needs, when David has been struggling for 3 years to figure it out. Mr. Marshall, Ariel says, extending her hand with the same quiet confidence she showed in the school hallway. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for coming, David replies, and means it more than any pleasantry he's ever exchanged. And please call me David. They move to the dining room, where Leo immediately begins an animated explanation of his engine project. Ariel listens with complete attention, asking questions that show she's genuinely interested, not just being polite. She admires the improvements Leo made, suggests small modifications, and treats his creation with the respect of one engineer appreciating another's work. David watches this interaction while serving dinner, marveling at how different Leo becomes in Ariel's presence. More confident, more animated, more like the child he used to be before grief changed everything. "Ariel," David says as they begin eating, "Leo tells me you're interested in engineering." "What kind of engineering?" "Mechanical engineering mostly, with a focus on sustainable technology." She pauses, then adds with a slight smile, "I want to design machines that fix things instead of replacing them. Machines that help instead." "They've hurt." "That sounds like a wonderful goal. Are you planning to study it in college?" Ariel's expression becomes more guarded. "I'm hoping to. I've applied for scholarships, but..." She shrugs. "We'll see what happens." David hears the careful hope in her voice, the way she doesn't allow herself to count on anything that isn't guaranteed. "Where have you applied?" "MIT, Stanford, Caltech, places that probably wouldn't normally consider someone like me, but my guidance counselor said it was worth trying." "Someone like you?" David asks, genuinely puzzled. Ariel looks at him like he's asked why water is wet. "Poor Latina, first-generation college student, the daughter of a janitor." The casual way she lists these supposed limitations hits David like a slap. Here is this brilliant, kind, capable young woman who's already taught his son more about life than David has managed in 9 years, and she sees herself as disadvantaged. "Ariel," David says carefully, "what you did for Leo in that classroom, what you're teaching him about fixing things and caring for others, that's not something they can teach in engineering school. That's something you already know that most engineers never learn." She looks at him with surprise, as if kindness from someone in his position is unexpected. "Besides," Leo chimes in, "you're the smartest person I know, even smarter than Daddy, and he went to really good schools." Ariel laughs, a sound that fills the dining room with warmth. "Thank you, Leo. That's very sweet." "He's not being sweet," David says. "He's being accurate. I've been watching you with Leo, and you have gifts that can't be taught. Intelligence, yes, but also empathy. The ability to see what people need. Those are rare qualities." They talk through dinner about engines and robots, about Ariel's mother and her work ethic, about Leo's memories of Sarah and how she used to fix things around the house. The conversation flows naturally, punctuated by Leo's laughter and Ariel's gentle questions that draw both father and son out of their shells. After dinner, Ariel presents Leo with the small package she brought. Inside is a tiny robot no bigger than his palm, made from what looks like watch parts and wire. "I made him for you," she says. "He doesn't do much, just lights up when you press his chest. But I thought maybe he could remind you that broken things can be beautiful too." Leo cradles the little robot like it's made of gold. When he presses its chest, LED eyes light up in a gentle blue glow. "He's perfect," Leo breathes. "I'm going to name him Corazon." "That means heart," Ariel explains to David. "Because he lights up from the inside," Leo adds, then looks up at Ariel with such pure adoration that David's chest tightens. "Just like you taught me that people can do." As the evening winds down and David prepares to call a car to take Ariel home, she turns to him with a serious expression. "Mr. Marshall, David, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you really invite me here tonight?" David considers the question, thinking about the honest answer versus the polite answer. Then he remembers Ariel's straightforward nature and decides on truth. "Because my son has been more alive in the past week than he's been in 3 years. Because you gave him something I couldn't figure out how to give him. Because I'm hoping some of what you know about fixing broken things might rub off on me." Ariel studies his face for a long moment. "What makes you think you're broken?" The question catches David off guard. I can't reach my own son. I can't make him happy. I can't even make myself happy. What would you call that?" "I'd call that grief," Ariel says gently. "And grief isn't the same as being broken. Grief is love with nowhere to go. But Leo still needs his father's love, even if it feels different than it used to." David stares at this 17-year-old, who speaks about loss like she's lived through decades of it. "How did you get so wise?" "My mama," Ariel says simply. She taught me that the hardest things in life are also the most important things, and that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice you make every day. As David walks Ariel to the elevator, Leo trailing behind them clutching his new robot, he realizes that this evening has changed something fundamental in their home. The penthouse doesn't feel like a mausoleum anymore. It feels like a place where a family might actually live. Ariel, he says as they wait for the elevator, would you like to spend more time with Leo? Not as a tutor exactly, but as a friend, someone who understands him in ways I'm still learning. I'd like that, she says. But I want you to understand something. I can't replace what Leo lost. Nobody can. But maybe I can help you both. Remember that love doesn't end just because someone dies. It just changes shape. The elevator arrives, and as the doors close on Ariel's gentle smile, David turns to find Leo looking up at him with eyes full of hope. Daddy, Leo says. I think Mommy would have liked Ariel. Yeah, buddy, David says, his voice thick with emotion. I think she would have liked her very much. What happens when a family begins to heal, not by forgetting their pain, but by learning to carry it together? What happens when love finds new ways to flow, even through the cracks grief has left behind? The answer reveals itself in understanding that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones built from broken pieces that choose to fit together anyway. But their newfound happiness was about to be tested in ways none of them could have imagined. Sometimes crisis becomes the catalyst for the deepest healing and the greatest danger. Some moments split your life into before and after. This is one of those moments. Sunday afternoon in the Marshall penthouse, 3 weeks after that first dinner, sunlight streams through windows that finally feel warm instead of cold. The dining room table is scattered with engine parts, pencil shavings, and the comfortable debris of a project shared between father and son. For the first time in almost 4 years, the penthouse echoes with something that sounds dangerously close to happiness. Ariel has become a regular presence in their lives, arriving each Saturday with new projects and gentle wisdom that seems to heal something in both David and Leo. Today she's teaching them to build a more complex engine, one with multiple gears and moving parts that requires patience and precision. Daddy, watch this, Leo calls from his position on the floor, where he's been working on an ambitious reverse gear mechanism. His face glows with the confidence that comes from weeks of successful projects and encouraging words. Ariel taught me how to make the gears work backwards, so the car can reverse and do circles. David looks up from his laptop, work he's actually ignoring for once, and watches his son's face illuminate with pride and excitement. The change in Leo over the past month has been remarkable. The boy who barely spoke now chatters constantly about gear ratios and torque principles and what Ariel says about listening to machines. That's incredible, buddy, David says, closing his laptop completely and moving to kneel beside Leo. Show me how you figured that out. Leo begins an enthusiastic explanation, his small hands moving confidently among the mechanical parts. Ariel watches from her spot at the table, smiling at the easy interaction between father and son. This is what she's been working toward, not just fixing Leo's sadness, but rebuilding the connection between him and David. See, Daddy, if I adjust this gear here and connect it to this wheel, then when the engine runs forward, the car goes backward. Leo reaches into the engine mechanism to demonstrate, his excitement making him less careful than usual. Crack. The key. Sound cuts through the afternoon peace like a gunshot. Leo's cry of pain follows immediately after, high-pitched and terrified. Daddy, David's world tilts. Leo is on the ground, his right hand trapped in the working mechanism of the large model engine they'd been building together. The same engine that Leo had been trying to adjust. The same engine that David should have been supervising more carefully. Blood stains the mechanical parts where Leo's fingers are caught between unforgiving gears. Oh God, Leo, don't move. Don't move. David drops to his knees beside his son, his hands shaking as he tries to assess the situation. Leo's fingers are trapped in the gears, and every small movement sends fresh waves of pain through the boy's small body. Leo's face is white with shock and pain, tears streaming down his cheeks. It hurts, Daddy. It hurts so much I can't get it out. David's mind races, but every thought crashes into panic. Call 911. No, try to free him first. No, don't make it worse. No, call the building's emergency number. No, call his personal physician. His hands hover uselessly over the machine, terror paralyzing him. This is his fault. His fault for letting Leo play with complicated machinery. His fault for not paying attention. His fault for failing to protect his son. Again, just like with Sarah. Just like with everything that matters. Daddy, do something, please, make it stop. David's phone slips from his trembling fingers as he tries to dial emergency services. Everything is going wrong, just like it did with Sarah. Just like it always does when people he loves need him most. He can make million-dollar decisions without breaking a sweat, but faced with his son's pain, he's utterly helpless. I'm calling 911, Leo. I'm going to... The paramedics will... Wait. The voice comes from behind him, calm and steady as mountain stone. Ariel stands there, having rushed from the kitchen where she'd been cleaning up their lunch dishes. She takes in the scene instantly. Leo trapped, David panicking, blood on the engine parts, and her face transforms into the expression of someone who's dealt with emergencies before. Don't call yet, she says, her voice carrying the kind of authority that makes even adults listen. Let me look first. Ariel, Leo sobs, relief flooding his voice like sunrise after the longest night. I can't get my hand out. It's stuck and it hurts so much. I can see that, sweetheart, Ariel says gently, dropping to her knees beside him without hesitation. Her voice carries the same steadiness David remembers from the classroom, but now he hears something else. The quiet competence of someone who's been the calm in other people's storms. But you know what? I bet this machine is just confused about how to let go. Let me talk to it, okay? David watches, frozen in his own inadequacy, as Ariel examines the mechanism with careful precision. Her hands don't shake. Her breathing stays even. She's 17 years old and she's more calm in this crisis than a man who's survived corporate takeovers and federal investigations. Mr. Marshall, she says without looking up, her attention focused entirely on Leo's trapped hand. I need you to get me a bottle of cooking oil from the kitchen, the olive oil, and a thin kitchen towel. Quickly, but don't run. Shouldn't we just call oil and towel? Ariel repeats firmly, her voice carrying the kind of quiet authority that doesn't need to be loud to be obeyed. So now please, David stumbles to the kitchen, his hands still shaking as he grabs olive oil and a dish towel. Behind him he can hear Ariel talking softly to Leo in English, but with the musical cadence of her mother's accent, her voice soothing even as she works. By the time he returns, Leo's sobs have quieted to sniffles. What did you tell him? David asks, handing her the supplies with hands that won't stop trembling. I told him about the time I got my hand stuck in my mother's sewing machine when I was 8 years old, Ariel says, beginning to work oil carefully around Leo's trapped fingers. I told him that machines don't want to hurt us, they just sometimes hold on too tight because they're scared we'll abandon them when they're not working perfectly. She works with infinite patience, using the oil to lubricate the gears, speaking constant reassurance to Leo in 2 languages. David watches her hands, steady, sure, gentle, and realizes he's witnessing something extraordinary. Not just mechanical skill, but the kind of calm competence that comes from growing up in a world where emergencies can't be solved with money or phone calls, where you learn to handle crisis with whatever you have, because help might not be coming. There, Ariel breathes, and suddenly Leo's hand slides free. His fingers are scraped and bruised, wrapped in torn skin that looks worse than it is, but nothing appears to be broken. The blood was mostly from small cuts, frightening but not serious. Leo launches himself into Ariel's arms, sobbing with relief and lingering fear. You saved me! You saved my hand! I thought I was going to lose my fingers! You're okay, mijo, Ariel murmurs, holding him close, her own hands shaking now that the crisis has passed. You're safe now. Your hand is going to be fine. David collapses into a chair, adrenaline leaving him weak and shaky. He stares at Ariel holding his son, and something breaks open in his chest. Not breaking apart. Breaking open. Like a shell that's been holding something precious inside. For too long, how did you know what to do? He asks, his voice barely a whisper. Ariel looks up at him over Leo's head and her eyes are gentle with understanding. When you grow up without much money, you learn to fix things instead of replacing them. And when you can't afford to go to the emergency room unless someone's dying, you learn to handle emergencies yourself. The words are said without judgment, but David feels the weight of privilege and helplessness pressing down on him. All his wealth, all his power, all his success, and he couldn't save his son from a simple mechanical accident. But this brilliant girl who has so little, knew exactly what to do. I should have known, David says, his voice thick with self-recrimination. I should have been watching him more carefully. I should have anticipated, Mr. Marshall. Ariel's voice cuts through his spiral of guilt like a gentle knife. Can I tell you something my mother taught me? He nods, not trusting his voice to remain steady. She said that being a good parent isn't about preventing every accident. It's about being present when accidents happen. You were here, you cared. You wanted to help. That matters. Leo pulls back from Ariel's embrace and looks at his father with eyes that hold no blame, only love. Daddy, you did help. You got the oil and the towel. And you stayed with me even though you were scared too. David's vision blurs with tears he can't hold back anymore. I was so scared, Leo. When I saw you hurt, I thought about Mommy and how I couldn't help her either, and I couldn't think straight. But Ariel was here, Leo says with the simple faith of a child who's learned to trust in the people who show up for him, and she knew what to do, just like she always does. The three of them sit in the aftermath of crisis, surrounded by scattered engine parts and the lingering smell of fear and relief. David looks at Ariel, really looks at her, and sees not just the girl who fixed Leo's engine or saved his hand, but the person who's been quietly saving his entire family, one moment at a time. When did we start believing that strength means never needing help? When did we decide that love means never showing fear? The answer was becoming clear as David learned that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them see that you need them too. But this moment of vulnerability would prove to be preparation for something much larger, a revelation that would change how all three of them understood their connection. That evening, after they've bandaged Leo's hand and he's fallen asleep clutching the small robot Ariel made for him, David and Ariel sit in the penthouse living room. The city sparkles beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but neither of them is looking at the view. I need to ask you something, David says, his voice heavy with the weight of realizations that have been building for weeks. And I need you to be honest with me. Ariel nods, waiting. Why do you keep helping us, really? Not the polite answer, not what you think I want to hear. The truth. Ariel is quiet for a long moment, considering her words. When she speaks, her voice is soft but clear. Do you really want to know? Yet, because you remind me of my father. David wasn't expecting that. Your father, he died when I was 12. Construction accident. A crane collapsed. Ariel's voice doesn't waver, but David can hear the old pain beneath the surface. He was a good man, but he worked dangerous jobs because they paid better. He was trying to save enough money to bring his parents to America. She pauses, looking out at the city lights. The last few months before he died, he was different, distant, worried all the time. My mama said later that he knew something bad was going to happen, but he didn't know how to protect us from it. David feels a chill that has nothing to do with the air conditioning. He used to stand outside my bedroom door at night, just like you do with Leo. I could see his shadow under the door. He wanted to come in, wanted to talk to me, but he didn't know what to say. He was scared that if he talked about his fears, he would make them real. The parallel hits David like a physical blow. Ariel, when I see you with Leo, I see a father who loves his son, but doesn't know how to bridge the gap that grief made. I see a man who's so afraid of losing what he has left that he's forgotten how to enjoy it. David stares at her, this 17-year-old, who sees straight through to the heart of his deepest fears. What happened to your father? He never got the chance to say goodbye. Never got to tell me he loved me one last time. Never got to teach me the things fathers are supposed to teach their daughters. Ariel's voice grows quieter. But you still can. You still have time with Leo. That's why I help, because I see a second chance and I can't stand to watch it be wasted. The room falls silent except for the distant hum of the city below. David absorbs her words, understanding for the first time why this girl has been so determined to heal his family. I'm not trying to replace your wife, Ariel continues. I'm not trying to take her place in Leo's heart. I'm just trying to help you both remember that love doesn't end when someone dies. It changes, but it doesn't end. How do you know so much about loss? David asks. You're only 17. When you lose your father at 12, you grow up fast. When you watch your mother work 3 jobs to keep food on the table, you learn about sacrifice. When you see families who have everything take it for granted, she shrugs, you learn what really matters. David thinks about his own childhood, privileged and protected, where the biggest crisis was which Ivy League school to attend, where love was assumed, never questioned, never threatened, where loss was something that happened to other people. What would you tell Leo if you were me? He asks. What would you want your father to have said to you? Ariel considers this carefully. I'd tell him that being sad about Mommy doesn't mean he's not allowed to be happy about other things. I'd tell him that loving new people doesn't mean he loves her less. I'd tell him that she would want him to have a full life, not a careful one. The wisdom in her words takes David's breath away. And what would you tell me? I'd tell you that grief isn't something you get over, it's something you learn to carry. And that Leo needs to see you carrying it, not hiding from it. He needs to know that it's okay to be sad and happy at the same time. David looks at this remarkable young woman who's been teaching him lessons he never knew he needed to learn. Ariel, I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it before you answer. She waits. Would you consider staying, not just for the summer, not just until you start college? Would you consider becoming part of our family? Really part of it? Ariel's eyes widen. What do you mean? I want to help you with college. I want to make sure you have every opportunity you deserve. David struggles for words that don't sound like a business transaction. I want you to know that you have a place here with us, for as long as you want it. Mr. Marshall, David, he corrects gently. David, I can't let you pay for my education. That's too much. I can't be your charity case. You wouldn't be, David says firmly. You'd be family, and families help each other. Ariel stares at him, tears gathering in her eyes. What about my mama? What about her? She's worked so hard to give me opportunities. If I accept help from you, does that mean her sacrifices didn't matter? David thinks about this question, understanding instinctively that his answer will determine everything that comes next. Ariel, your mother gave you something I couldn't give Leo with all my money. She gave you the ability to see what people really need. She gave you compassion, resilience, wisdom. Those aren't things you can buy. They're gifts that come from love and struggle and determination. He pauses, choosing his words carefully. If I help you get the education you deserve, I'm not replacing what your mother gave you. I'm building on it. And someday, when you're designing those machines that fix things instead of replacing them, you'll be using both her gifts and the opportunities we created together. Ariel wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. What does Leo think about this? Why don't we ask him? They find Leo in his room, supposedly asleep, but clearly listening at his bedroom door. When David opens it, Leo tumbles backward with a sheepish grin. Were you eavesdropping, buddy? Maybe a little, Leo admits. Did you really ask Ariel to be part of our family? I did. What do you think about that? Leo's face lights up like Christmas morning. I think Mommy would want us to take care of the people who take care of us. David looks at Ariel, sees the tears she's trying to hold back, sees the hope she's afraid to trust. So what do you say? Ready to be stuck with us? Yes, she whispers. Then louder, yes, I'd like that very much. Leo throws his arms around both of them, and for the first time since Sarah died, David feels like he's part of a complete family again. Not the same family they were before, but a new one. One built on choice rather than biology, on healing, rather than grief, on the radical idea that love is something you do, not just something you feel. Every life has moments that test who you really are. This is David's. 3 months pass like a dream. Leo thrives under Ariel's guidance, becoming more confident, more curious, more like the child he was before grief changed everything. David learns to be present, to listen, to show up for the small moments that matter. The penthouse fills with laughter and the comfortable chaos of a family that's learning to live again. Ariel accepts early admission to MIT with a full scholarship, her own merit, though David's recommendation letter may have helped. She plans to defer for a year to help Leo transition and to spend more time with her mother before leaving for college. Everything seems perfect until the phone call that changes everything. David is in his office reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant buzzes him. "Mr. Marshall, there's a reporter on line 2. Says it's urgent. Take a message." "Sir, she says it's about your personal life. Something about Leo and a girl named Ariel." David's blood turns cold. He takes the call. "Mr. Marshall, this is Jennifer Walsh from Manhattan Weekly. I'm working on a story about your relationship with the teenage daughter of one of your employees. Would you care to comment?" The words hit David like a punch to the gut. "I don't know what you're talking about. Ariel Martinez, 17 years old, daughter of Carmen Martinez, who cleans your building. We have photos of her entering your penthouse multiple times, sources who say she's been acting as a nanny to your son. Some people are asking questions about the appropriateness of this relationship." David's hands shake as he grips the phone. "Ms. Walsh, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Is it true that you've promised to pay for her college education? That you've been giving her family money? Some might call that grooming behavior, Mr. Marshall, especially given the age difference and power dynamics involved." The room spins. David can barely breathe. It's not like that at all." "Then what is it like?" "Our sources say you've become quite attached to this young woman, that you spend considerable time alone with her, that your son calls her by pet names. It paints a concerning picture." David wants to explain about Leo's accident, about Ariel's wisdom, about how she saved his family. But he realizes with growing horror that every innocent interaction could be twisted, every moment of healing turned into something dark and predatory. "I need to go," he manages. "Mr. Marshall, the story runs tomorrow. This is your chance to tell your side." David hangs up and immediately calls his lawyer, his publicist, his crisis management team. But even as he explains the situation, even as they assure him they can handle it, he knows the damage is already done. In the court of public opinion, a wealthy CEO and a poor teenage girl makes for a narrative that doesn't need facts to be believed. By evening, the story is everywhere. Social media explodes with speculation and judgment. Millionaire predator. Trends on Twitter. The photos are innocent. Ariel helping Leo with a project, David walking them to the elevator, but the captions paint them as sinister. David stares at his phone, watching his reputation crumble in real time. But worse than the damage to his career is the thought of what this will do to Ariel, to her college prospects, to her future. His phone rings. Carmen Martinez, her voice shaking with fear and anger. "Mr. Marshall, what have you done?" "To my daughter. The reporters, they're at our apartment building. They're asking our neighbors questions. They're saying terrible things. Carmen, I'm so sorry, this is all a misunderstanding. Is it because it looks like you used your money and power to... She can't finish the sentence, but the accusation hangs between them. "No," David says firmly. "Never. Carmen, Ariel saved my son. She saved our family. I would never hurt her." Then why are they saying these things? David doesn't have an answer that makes sense. How do you explain that sometimes kindness looks suspicious to people who've forgotten what it looks like? Ariel arrives at the penthouse an hour later, her face pale but determined. Leo runs to her as usual, but David sees how she hesitates before hugging him back. "We need to talk," she says quietly. They send Leo to his room with a new puzzle, then sit in the living room where they've shared so many comfortable conversations. Now the space feels charged with danger. "The reporters came to my school today. Ariel says without preamble. They asked my classmates about us, about whether I ever seemed uncomfortable around you, about whether you ever gave me expensive gifts. David feels sick. Ariel, you have to know. I know, she says firmly. I know you've never been anything but respectful and kind. I know Leo needs you both in his life. I know this is all lies and twisted truths. Then why do you look like you're about to say goodbye? Ariel's composure cracks slightly. Because I can't destroy your life, and I can't let you destroy mine. What do you mean? MIT called today. They're reconsidering my acceptance. Apparently questions have been raised about how I obtained my recommendation letters. Stanford wants to review my application. Everything I've worked for my entire life is being taken away because people think I'm some kind of victim or manipulator. David's heart breaks. We'll fight this. We'll hire the best lawyers, the best publicists. With what money? Ariel asks quietly. My family can't afford to fight billionaires and news organizations. And even if we could, even if we won, do you think people would forget? Do you think any college would want the girl from the scandal? So what? Are you saying... Ariel stands up, her decision already made. I'm saying goodbye to you, to Leo, to this whole situation. Before it gets any worse, no. David stands too, desperation making his voice rough. No, you can't. Leo needs you. I need you. You're part of our family now. That's the problem, Ariel says sadly. Families are supposed to protect each other. Right now, the best way I can protect you and Leo is to disappear. But what about your education, your dreams? I'll find another way. I always have. David stares at this remarkable girl who's about to sacrifice everything to protect people she's known for less than 6 months. There has to be another solution. There is, Ariel says quietly. But you're not going to like it. Tell me. You could hold a press conference. Explain that I was just Leo's tutor, that there was nothing inappropriate, that you're terminating our arrangement because you want to protect my reputation. Make it clear that I was just an employee, nothing more. The words cut David like glass. After everything they've shared, everything they've built together, she's asking him to reduce their relationship to a business transaction. I can't do that, he says. It would be a lie. It would be a necessary lie. But what about the truth? What about the fact that you saved Leo? That you taught me how to be a father again? That you changed our lives? The truth doesn't matter if no one believes it. They stand in silence, the weight of an impossible choice settling between them. David thinks about Leo, who's finally learning to trust people again. About Ariel, who deserves every opportunity in the world. About the family they've built from broken pieces. And he makes his decision. No, he says firmly. I won't lie about what you mean to us. I won't reduce you to an employee or pretend our connection isn't real. If that means facing the consequences, then we'll face them together. David, I'm calling a press conference, he says, his voice growing stronger with conviction. And I'm going to tell the truth, all of it, about Leo's accident, about what you've taught us, about how you saved our family. And if people choose not to believe it, if they want to see something dark in a story about healing and love, then that says more about them than it does about us. Ariel stares at him, tears streaming down her face. You could lose everything. I already lost everything once when Sarah died. But you and Leo taught me that losing isn't the same as being broken, and I won't let fear make me abandon the people I love again. And if the press conference doesn't work, if people still believe the worst, David looks at this girl, who's given his family everything and asks for nothing in return. Then we'll figure it out together, because that's what families do. Sometimes the most important battles are fought not with weapons, but with words, not with power, but with truth. The press conference is scheduled for the next morning. David spends the night awake, writing and rewriting his statement, knowing that everything he says will be scrutinized, dissected, twisted. His crisis management team begs him to reconsider, to take the safe route, to distance himself from the scandal. Just say she was an employee, his publicist pleads. Say it was a misunderstanding. Let it blow over. No, David says for the 20th time. I won't throw her under the bus to save my reputation. Then you're going to lose everything. Your company, your standing in the community, possibly custody of Leo if this gets bad enough. The threat hangs in the air like poison. David thinks about Leo sleeping peacefully in his room, clutching the little robot Ariel made for him. The idea of losing his son because he chose to protect Ariel is almost unbearable. Almost. If I abandon her now, David says quietly, what does that teach Leo about loyalty? About standing up for people you care about doing the right thing when it's hard? The room falls silent. His team exchanges glances that say what they're too professional to voice, that he's making an emotional decision that will destroy his life. Maybe they're right. But David has learned something over the past few months that all his business training never taught him. That some things are more important than success. Some things are worth losing everything for. The next morning, David stands at the podium in the conference room of his office building, facing a pack of reporters whose cameras flash like lightning. Behind him, blown up on a screen, is a photo of him, Leo, and Ariel at the science fair, where Leo won second place for his engine project. In the photo, they look exactly like what they are. A family celebrating a child's achievement. Thank you all for coming, David begins, his voice steady despite the chaos in his chest. I want to address the stories that have been circulating about my relationship with Ariel Martinez. The room buzzes with anticipation. Every reporter leans forward, ready for denials, explanations, the usual political non-answers that powerful men give when caught in scandals. They're not prepared for what David gives them instead. 3. Months ago, my 9-year-old son Leo had been silent for nearly 4 years. His mother, my wife Sarah, died when he was 6. And Leo had essentially stopped talking, stopped smiling, stopped being a child. I tried everything, therapists, specialists, programs, nothing worked. David pauses, looking directly into the cameras. Then Ariel Martinez walked into Leo's classroom, and in 3 minutes accomplished what I couldn't do in 3 years. She fixed his broken engine, and in doing so she fixed something broken in him. A reporter shouts a question, but David continues without acknowledging it. Ariel is 17 years old. She's brilliant, kind, and wise beyond her years. She's also the daughter of a woman who cleans this very building. A woman I'm ashamed to say I never bothered to notice until her daughter saved my family. The room grows quieter. This isn't the narrative they expected. Over the past 3 months, Ariel has been a mentor, a friend, and yes, a part of our family. Not because I groomed her or manipulated her, but because she chose to care. About a grieving father and his broken son. She taught Leo about engines and life and hope. She taught me about presence and patience and what it means to love without trying to control. David's voice grows stronger, more passionate. She's never asked for anything in return, not money, not favors, not opportunities. When I offered to help with her education, which she earned through her own merit and intelligence, she initially refused because she didn't want to take what she hadn't earned. A female reporter calls out, "But the power dynamics—" "You want to talk about power dynamics," David interrupts, his composure cracking slightly. "Let me tell you about power dynamics. Her teenage girl who had every reason to ignore my son chose to help him. A girl whose family struggles financially taught a billionaire about what really matters. A 17-year-old taught a 42-year-old man how to be a father. He pauses, letting that sink in. If anyone had power in our relationship, it was Ariel. She had the power to heal, to teach, to transform lives. I had money, she had wisdom. You tell me which is more valuable." "Mr. Marshall," another reporter shouts, "what about the appearance of impropriety?" David looks directly at the camera, thinking about Ariel watching from her apartment, about Leo at school, about all the people who will judge this story without knowing its truth. The appearance of impropriety exists only if you choose to see something dark in a story about healing, if you choose to see predator behavior in a man learning to love his son again, if you choose to see exploitation in kindness freely given. His voice softens. "My wife used to say that the world shows you what you're looking for. If you're looking for scandal, you'll find it everywhere. If you're looking for love, you'll find that too." What do you say to critics who claim you used your wealth and position to take advantage of a vulnerable young woman. David almost laughs. Vulnerable? You clearly don't know Ariel Martinez. She's the strongest person I've ever met. She builds robots from garbage, fixes engines with bobby pins, and speaks 3 languages. She's headed to MIT on merit, not connections. The only vulnerable people in this story were Leo and me, and she saved us both. The questions continue, but David has said what he came to say. As he leaves the podium, reporters shout after him about his business, his reputation, his future. He doesn't look back, because for the first time in years, David Marshall knows exactly who he is, a father who chooses love over fear, truth over convenience, and family over reputation. The fallout is swift and brutal. By noon, Dr. David Truth is trending alongside Dr. Millionaire Predator, with the internet split between those who see David's press conference as touching and those who see it as manipulation. The Marshall Educational. Technology's stock price drops 15%. 3 board members call emergency meetings. 2 major clients threaten to pull their contracts. But something else happens too. Teachers start posting stories about students like Leo, children, who've been helped by mentors and tutors and kind strangers. Parents share videos of their kids talking about the Ariels in their lives, older students, young adults, coaches, and friends who made a difference. The hashtag #MyAriel begins trending, filled with stories of cross-generational relationships that changed lives. In her apartment in Queens, Ariel watches the press conference with her mother, both of them crying as David refuses to diminish what they've shared. Carmen holds her daughter's hand as they read comment after comment from people who understand exactly what David was talking about. "My daughter," Carmen says softly, "this man, he loves you like family." "I know, Mama. That's what makes this so hard." Ariel's phone buzzes constantly. Interview requests, scholarship offers from smaller colleges that weren't swayed by the scandal, messages of support from classmates and teachers, but also hateful comments, accusations, threats from people who've decided she's either a victim or a manipulator. At Washington Elementary, Leo sits in Mrs. Henderson's classroom, confused by the whispers and stares from other teachers. He doesn't understand why adults are upset about Ariel helping him, why something good is being treated like something bad. "Mrs. Henderson," he asks during lunch, "is Ariel in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. Some people just don't understand how special friendships can be." "But Daddy explained it. Ariel fixed my engine and taught me about being happy and sad at the same time. Why don't they believe him?" Mrs. Henderson kneels down to Leo's level, her heart breaking for this child who's learned too young that the world can be cruel to love. Sometimes, Leo, people are so used to hearing bad stories that they forget good ones exist. "That's silly," Leo says with the clarity of childhood. "Good stories are everywhere if you look for them." That afternoon, David picks Leo up from school himself, something he's started doing every day since Ariel came into their lives. As they drive home, Leo is unusually quiet. "Daddy," he finally says, "are you going to send Ariel away?" David's hands tighten on the steering wheel. "What makes you ask that?" "Because that's what happened to Mr. Johnson." David remembers the previous year. A male teacher at Leo's school was transferred after accusations that were later proven false. But the damage was done. "No, buddy, I'm not sending Ariel anywhere." "Good," Leo says with satisfaction. "Because I think Mommy would be sad if we let people scare away someone who makes us happy." That evening, David, Leo, and Ariel sit in the penthouse living room, the elephant of uncertainty heavy between them. Ariel has been quieter than usual, checking her phone constantly, her usual easy confidence replaced by watchful wariness. "I've been thinking," she says finally, "about what's best for everyone." "Ariel," David starts. "Let me finish," she says gently. "I've been thinking about my father and what he would want me to do, and I think he would want me to be brave." "What does that mean?" Leo asks. Ariel turns to him with a smile that's sad but determined. "It means I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. People are saying mean things about your daddy and me, but that doesn't make them true. And I won't let mean people make me abandon my family." Leo throws himself into her arms. "You promise?" I promise. But things might be difficult for a while. Some people might say unkind things about us. Are you okay with that? Leo pulls back and looks at her seriously. Ariel, you taught me that broken things can be fixed. But you also taught me that some people try to break things on purpose. Those people are the real problem. David stares at his son, amazed by his wisdom. When did you get so smart? Ariel taught me that too, Leo says matter-of-factly. The next morning brings unexpected news. MIT calls Ariel directly, not through the admissions office, but from the Dean of Engineering himself. Ms. Martinez, he says, I've been following the news coverage of your situation. I want you to know that MIT stands behind its admissions decisions. You earned your place here based on merit, and no amount of media speculation will change that. Ariel's hands shake as she holds the phone. Thank you, sir. Furthermore, we'd like to invite you to speak at our freshman orientation. Your story, about perseverance, about finding opportunity in unexpected places, about using your gifts to help others, that's exactly the kind of leadership we want to highlight. When Ariel tells David and Leo the news, Leo insists on making a celebration dinner. As they cook together, badly but with enormous enthusiasm, David realizes that this scandal, terrible as it's been, has also been a gift. Fate's forced them to name what they mean to each other. It's made them choose each other deliberately, publicly, irrevocably. Ariel, David says as they sit down to their imperfectly perfect meal, I want to ask you something, and I want you to know there's no wrong answer. She waits. Next month I'm legally adopting you, if you want me to, as my daughter, Leo's sister, officially, permanently, no matter what anyone says. Ariel's fork clatters to her plate. David, I know it's complicated because you already have a mother who loves you. Carmen will always be your mum, and I would never try to replace that. But I also want you to know that you'll always have a place here with us no matter what. What about the scandal? Won't that make things worse? As David smiles. Let them try to find something inappropriate about a father loving his daughter. Ariel looks at Leo, who's nodding enthusiastically, then at David, who's looking at her with the same expression he wears when he looks at Leo, pure, protective, unconditional love. Yes, she whispers. Yes, I'd like that very much. Leo cheers and launches himself at both of them, and David realizes that this is what winning looks like. Not stock prices or board approvals or positive press coverage. This, three people choosing each other despite what the world thinks. Family made from choice instead of blood. Love that's stronger because it's been tested. When did we decide that love needs to justify itself to strangers? When did we start believing that family has to look like everyone else's family to be real? The answer emerged as three people discovered that the most radical thing you can do is love each other openly, proudly, and without apology. What followed would prove that courage has a way of multiplying, inspiring others to embrace their own unconventional families. 6 months later, the world looks different. David's company stock has not only recovered, but reached new heights, buoyed by a marketing campaign that focuses on family values and authentic connections. It turns out that people want to buy educational technology from a man who actually knows how to connect with children. More importantly, David himself is different. He leaves work at 5:30 every day to have dinner with his family. He asks Leo about his feelings, not just his grades. He's learned to be present in moments instead of always planning for the next thing. Leo has blossomed in ways that go beyond David's wildest hopes. He's confident, curious, and kind. He tutors younger children in engineering principles, passing on what Ariel taught him. His laughter fills the penthouse regularly now, a sound that David sometimes stops. Everything just to hear. Ariel has deferred MIT for a year, but not because of the scandal. She's started a non-profit called Heart Engineering, a program that teaches STEM skills to underprivileged kids, while also addressing the emotional and social aspects of learning. She's been featured in magazines, not as a scandal figure, but as a young innovator changing education. Carmen has quit 2 of her 3 jobs. The family trust David established for Ariel includes support for Carmen's education. She's finally going back to school to become a certified nursing assistant, something she's dreamed of for 20 years. The adoption was finalized on a Tuesday morning in family court, with Leo serving as an enthusiastic witness. When the judge declared Ariel officially part of the Marshall family, Leo shouted, "Finally!" so loudly that the whole courtroom laughed. Now, as David watches Ariel help Leo with a robotics project while dinner simmers on the stove, he thinks about Sarah. Not with the crushing grief that used to suffocate him, but with gentle gratitude. Sarah would love Ariel. She would love seeing Leo so happy. She would love knowing that their family found a way to grow around the space she left, rather than just grieving it forever. "Daddy," Leo calls from the dining room table, "come see what Ariel taught me about hydraulics." David joins them, marveling at the complex machine his son has built, a miniature crane that can lift objects using water pressure. But more than the engineering, he marvels at the easy collaboration between Leo and Ariel, the way they think through problems. Together, the way they celebrate each small success. "This is incredible, buddy," David says, examining the crane. "How did you figure out the pressure ratios?" "Ariel showed me, but she made me do the math myself." She says, "Engineering is thinking, not just following directions." "Smart." "Sister," David says, ruffling Leo's hair. Ariel grins at him. "Smart student. He figured out the leverage calculations all by himself." As they sit down to dinner, Leo raises his water glass like he's making a toast. "I want to say something," he announces solemnly. David and Ariel exchange amused glances. "Go ahead, buddy. I've been thinking about Mommy a lot lately. Not sad thinking, but happy thinking. And I think she sent Ariel to us. Why?" "Do you think that?" Ariel asks gently. "Because Mommy always said that love is the strongest force in the universe, stronger than gravity or magnetism or anything. And I think her love was so strong that even after she died, it found a way to take care of us." David's throat closes with emotion. "That's a beautiful thought, Leo." "I think so too. So I want to thank Mommy for sending us Ariel, and thank Ariel for letting Mommy's love work through her." They sit in reverent silence for a moment, feeling the truth of Leo's words settle around them. Then Ariel raises her own glass. "To families that choose each other," she says. "To love that finds a way," David adds. "To Mommy," Leo concludes, "was for starting it all." They clink glasses, and David realizes that this is what healing looks like. Not the absence of grief, but the presence of joy alongside it. Not forgetting the past, but building a future that honors it. Not replacing what was lost, but creating something new that carries forward the best of what came before. Outside the penthouse windows, Manhattan twinkles with 1,000,000 lights, each one representing lives and loves and families of all shapes and sizes. And inside, 3 people who found each other against all odds continue the simple, radical act of loving each other openly. 1 year later, that beginning would bear fruit in the most extraordinary way imaginable. 1 year later, the National Science Fair in Washington, D.C. The convention center buzzes with the excited energy of young inventors from across the country. Hundreds of projects fill the massive space: robots that paint, apps that translate, sign language, solar panels made from recycled materials. Among them, in a modest corner booth, stands Leo Marshall, now 10 years old, beside a project that looks deceptively simple. "Tell me about your invention," says Dr. Elena Rodriguez, one of the competition judges. As she approaches Leo's display, Leo's face lights up with the confidence that comes from truly understanding something you love. "It's called the heart." "Engine," he says, gesturing to a small mechanical device that doesn't look like much at first glance. "It's an engine that only runs when someone is genuinely caring for it." Dr. Rodriguez raises an eyebrow. "How does that work?" "Well," Leo explains, his voice growing more animated, "most engines run on fuel or electricity or wind, but this one runs on attention and kindness. See, it has sensors that can detect when someone is being gentle with it, when they're really listening to what it needs." As Leo demonstrates, placing his hands carefully on the engine and speaking to it softly, the small machine begins to hum and glow. Tiny gears turn, small lights blink in a pattern that resembles a heartbeat. "The idea came from my sister," Leo continues. "She taught me that broken things, machines and people, heal better when someone really cares about them." So I wanted to build an engine that could only work if the person using it was actually caring. And what's the practical application? Dr. Rodriguez asks, clearly intrigued. Leo's expression grows serious, beyond his years. Imagine if cars only started for drivers who were paying attention and being safe, or if medical equipment only worked when doctors and nurses were being really careful with patients, or if computers only turned on for people who were going to use them to help others instead of hurt them. Dr. Rodriguez stares at this 10-year-old who's essentially invented a machine powered by empathy. That's revolutionary thinking, Leo. My mom always said that love is the strongest force in the universe, Leo explains. I just figured out how to make machines listen to it. From across the room, David and Ariel watch this interaction with pride that threatens to overwhelm them both. Ariel, now 18 and preparing for her second year at MIT, has driven down from Boston to support Leo. David has taken the entire week off work, something that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. He's going to win, isn't he? Ariel whispers. I think he already has, David replies, but he's not looking at the judges or the other competitors. He's looking at his son, confident and passionate and joyful, explaining his invention to anyone who will listen. The heart engine represents everything Leo has learned about healing and connection. But more than that, it represents the healing of their entire family. The boy who couldn't speak for 3 years is now teaching adults about the power of caring. Ladies and gentlemen, comes the announcement over the PA system, we'll be announcing the winners in 15 minutes. All participants and families, please gather in the main auditorium. As they make their way through the crowds, Leo walking between David and Ariel, David thinks about the journey that brought them here. The broken engine in Mrs. Henderson's classroom that started everything. The accident that taught him how to trust Ariel. The scandal that forced them to choose each other publicly. Each crisis had felt like an ending, but they'd all been beginnings. The auditorium fills with hundreds of young inventors and their families. On stage, the head judge takes the microphone. This year's projects have been exceptional, she begins. We've seen creativity, technical skill and innovation that gives us tremendous hope for the future. But the grand prize goes to a project that didn't just demonstrate scientific knowledge, it demonstrated wisdom. Leo grabs David's hand on one side, Ariel's on the other. The winner of this year's National Science Fair is Leo Marshall. For his heart engine, a device that reminds us that the most important technology isn't about processing power or efficiency, but about human connection. The auditorium erupts in applause. Leo's mouth drops open in shock, then splits into a grin that could power his own invention. As his name is called again, he looks up at David and Ariel. We did it, he whispers. We really did it. You did it, buddy, David says, his voice thick with emotion. You created something beautiful. We all did, Leo insists, and David realizes his son is right. The heart engine isn't just Leo's invention, it's the product of everything. Their unconventional family has learned together about love, healing, and the courage to care. Sometimes the most important victories happen not on stage, but in quiet moments afterward. That evening, in their hotel room, the three of them sit on the bed with Leo's trophy between them, a crystal sculpture that catches the light and throws rainbows across the walls. Leo hasn't stopped smiling since the ceremony, but now, in the quiet after all the excitement, his expression grows thoughtful. Daddy, he says, I want to tell you something. What's that, buddy? When I was building the heart engine, I kept thinking about what you told me about Mommy, about how her love was still here even though she was gone. And I realized something. David and Ariel wait, recognizing the seriousness in Leo's voice. I realized that the heart engine isn't really about machines at all. It's about people. It's about how we all have engines inside us that run on being loved and cared for. And when people stop caring, our engines break down. Leo looks at his father with eyes that hold depths of understanding. Your engine was broken after Mommy died, wasn't it, Daddy? David's throat closes. Yes, buddy. It was. And mine was broken too. But then Ariel came and she knew how to fix engines, not just the mechanical kind, but the people kind too. Ariel wipes tears from her eyes. Leo? I want people to understand, Leo continues, that we can all be engine fixers for each other. We can all learn to listen to what's broken and help it work again. The simple profundity of his words settles over them like a blessing. This 10-year-old boy has articulated something that most adults spend lifetimes learning. That healing is something we do for each other. That love is both the problem and the solution. That families can be built from the broken pieces of other families. You know what, Leo? David says, pulling his son close. I think that's the most important invention of all. They sit together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle beyond their hotel window. Each of them is thinking about the journey that brought them here. David about the father he's become, Ariel about the family she never expected to find, Leo about the boy he was and the young man he's becoming. I have an idea, Ariel says suddenly. What if we made the Heart Engine project bigger? What if we started a foundation that teaches kids how to build things that help people heal? Like a school, Leo asks excitedly. Like a movement, Ariel says. We could teach engineering and emotional intelligence together, show kids that the best inventions aren't just technically brilliant, they're kind. David looks at his daughter, because that's what she is now, officially and completely, and marvels at how naturally she thinks about using her gifts to help others. That sounds like something your mother would love, he tells Leo. All three of my mothers. Leo says matter-of-factly. David and Ariel exchange puzzled glances. 3 mothers. The one who gave birth to me, the one who raised Ariel, and the one who chose to love us both. Leo looks at Ariel with such pure affection that she starts crying again. Because love makes families, not just biology, the pie. Conversation continues late into the night, with Leo explaining his vision for Heart Engine workshops, where children learn not just how to build machines, but how to build connections. Where engineering principles are taught alongside empathy, principles where every project begins with the question, how can this help someone feel less alone? We could have different levels, Leo says, his excitement building. Little kids could start with simple machines that respond to gentle touches. Older kids could build more complex devices that detect emotions and respond accordingly. And teenagers like Ariel could work on real-world applications, machines that help doctors be more present with patients, or computers that encourage people to be kinder online. David listens to his son's vision and realizes that this 10-year-old has just outlined a business plan that could revolutionize how technology interfaces with human emotion. But more than that, Leo has imagined a world where machines aren't just tools but teachers, helping humans remember how to be human. What would we call this foundation? Ariel asks. Leo doesn't hesitate. The Sarah Marshall Foundation for Heart Engineering. Because none of this would have happened without Mommy's love starting it all, David's breath catches. To honor Sarah by helping other families heal, to turn their loss into a gift for others, it feels like the perfect way to carry her memory forward. I think, David says, his voice rough with emotion, your mother would be so proud of the man you're becoming, Leo, and so proud of the family we've built together. 3 months later, back in New York, the Marshall Foundation headquarters occupies the top 3 floors of David's building, the same building where Carmen still works, though now as the Foundation's Director of Family Services rather than night janitor. The space buzzes with activity. Children working on engineering projects, teenagers mentoring younger students, parents learning alongside their kids. In the main workshop, Leo stands before a group of 20 children, ranging in age from 7 to 14. His confidence has grown exponentially, but he's retained the gentle patience that makes him such an effective teacher. Remember, he tells the group, the most important tool in engineering isn't a screwdriver or a computer. It's your ability to listen. Machines want to work just like people want to be happy. Sometimes they just need someone to understand what they're asking for. He demonstrates with a small robot that one of the younger children has been struggling with. Within minutes, Leo has identified the problem, a loose connection that needed gentle adjustment rather than force. See, he says to the frustrated 8-year-old, it wasn't broken. It was just asking for attention. The child's face lights up as her robot begins moving smoothly. Around the room, similar moments of discovery happen as children learn to approach both machines and each other with patience and care. Ariel moves between the groups, offering guidance and encouragement. She's deferred MIT for another semester, not because of any scandal, but because she's discovered that teaching might be her true calling. The university has been incredibly supportive, even offering to let her count her foundation work as independent study credit. David watches from the observation deck, where he's meeting with potential donors and partners, but his attention keeps drifting to the workshop floor, where his son and daughter are changing lives one small lesson at a time. It's remarkable, says Dr. Patricia Williams, a child psychologist who's been documenting the foundation's impact. We're seeing significant improvements in emotional regulation, social skills, and academic performance among the children who participate. But more than that, we're seeing families reconnect. She points to a corner where a single father works alongside his teenage daughter on a project that requires both of them to solve problems together. That man hasn't spoken to his daughter in months before they started coming here. Now look at them. David watches the father and daughter laugh together over a stubborn circuit board, and he thinks about his own journey from isolation to connection. What do you think makes the difference? The heart engine principle, Dr. Williams explains. When you create an environment where success depends on caring, where you literally can't progress unless you're being kind and patient, people learn to be kind and patient. It's behavioral conditioning wrapped in engineering education. But it's more than that, David says, thinking about Leo's words from months ago. It's teaching people that they can be engine fixers for each other. As the workshop winds down, families gather in the main meeting room for their weekly reflection circle. It's Leo's favorite part of the program, where participants share what they've learned, not just about engineering, but about themselves and each other. This week, says Maria, a 12-year-old whose mother brought her after a difficult divorce, I learned that my robot doesn't work when I'm frustrated. So I have to calm down first before I can fix problems. And I think maybe that works with people too. I learned, adds James, a father of 3, that my kids are way smarter than I give them credit for. And that when I actually listen to their ideas instead of just telling them what to do, we build better things together. One by one, children and adults share their discoveries. But it's the last comment that makes David's heart full. I learned, says Carmen, who's been observing today's session, that families can grow in the most beautiful ways when you're not expecting it, and that love really is the strongest force in the universe, strong enough to power machines, heal hearts and build bridges between people who might never have met otherwise. As families say their goodbyes and make plans for next week's session, Leo finds David and Ariel on the observation deck. Daddy, he says, do you think we're really making a difference? David looks at his son, this remarkable boy who's taken his own pain and transformed it into healing for others, and then at Ariel, who's shown them all what it means to choose love over fear. Leo, he says, I think we're proving something important. We're proving that broken things don't have to stay broken, that families can be built from love instead of just biology, that the most important inventions aren't the ones that make life easier. They're the ones that make life more connected. As they prepare to leave, Leo stops at the wall where they've hung photos of all the families who've participated in the program. Hundreds of faces smile back at him, children who've learned to see possibility in problems, parents who've rediscovered how to play, families who've found new ways to love each other. You know what I think, Daddy? What's that, buddy? I think Mommy's love didn't just bring Ariel to us. I think it's working through all of us now, helping other families find their way back to each other. David's vision blurs as he looks at the wall of faces, evidence of love multiplying, healing spreading, broken things becoming beautiful again. Yeah, Leo, he whispers. I think you're exactly right. 3 years ago, David Marshall was a man who had everything money could buy and nothing that mattered. Tonight he's a father whose son just won a national science fair with an invention powered by love. He's the adoptive father of a brilliant young woman who's changing the world one engine at a time. He's part of a family that chose each other against all odds, and proved that love really is the strongest force in the universe. But more than that, he's become part of something larger, a movement that's teaching the world that the most important technology isn't artificial intelligence or quantum computing. It's the ancient, powerful technology of human connection, refined and perfected through the simple act of caring for each other. Outside the Foundation windows, Manhattan sparkles with 1,000,000 lights, each one representing lives and loves and families of all shapes and sizes. And inside, 3 people who found each other against all odds continue the simple, radical act of loving each other openly while teaching others to do the same. As they walk toward the elevator, Leo, carrying his newest project, a small heart, engine he's building for a child whose father is deployed overseas, David realizes that Sarah's death wasn't the end of their family story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that includes not just the 3 of them, but all the families they're helping to heal. The heart engine hums quietly in Leo's hands, its gentle light pulsing like a heartbeat, powered by the love that flows between them and extends outward to touch every life they encounter. And somewhere in the darkness, almost too quiet to hear, is the gentle hum of hearts learning to work again, the most perfect engine ever created, powered by the choice to care for each other, no matter what the world thinks. The heart engine isn't just Leo's invention, it's what they've all become, proof that broken things can be more beautiful when they're fixed with love than they ever were when they were new. This is where every broken heart finds its way home. This is where love proves it really is the strongest force in the universe. This is where 3 souls discovered that family isn't about blood. It's about choice, courage, and the unshakable decision to care for each other through everything life brings. For every parent who's ever felt like they're failing their children, for every child who's ever wondered if they matter, for every person who's ever believed that families have to look like everyone else's to be real, for everyone who's ever been told that love isn't enough, this story wants you to know you are not broken and you are not alone. And love, real, patient, everyday love, really is the strongest force in the universe. Sometimes healing doesn't look like forgetting the past. Sometimes it looks like building something new that honors what came before while embracing what could be. Sometimes families aren't born, they're built. One moment of choosing each other at a time. And sometimes, when everything seems lost, a 17-year-old girl with bobby pins and unshakable faith shows up to remind you that broken things don't want to stay broken. They just need someone who knows how to listen to what they're really asking for. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Theodore Roosevelt, in a world that often feels divided and cold, choose to be someone's heart engine. Choose to be the person who shows up, who listens, who believes that broken things can be beautiful again. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for you to prove that love really can fix anything, even hearts that feel irreparably shattered. Thank you for joining this journey. Thank you for believing in the power of love to transform everything it touches. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone in your own life who showed up when you needed them most, or if it gave you hope that healing is possible, even when everything seems lost, carry it with you. Share its message with your actions, your choices, your own willingness to love courageously.